what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. I am the co-director, co-founder of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival right here in Western North Carolina. And across the podcasting table with me is Chris Fry, the other co-founder and co-director. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to us.
Yeah, so we're going to talk some movies today, as we always do.
Sounds good.
This is our little time to sit here at the table,
Tis.
talk some movies, review some films, talk over some news, and that's what we're going to do today. We've got a couple of film reviews we'll be exploring. First up, the latest film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson, we will be reviewing first. Following that up with a review of a film, When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, based on a world-famous book directed by Carolyn Link. We'll be reviewing that film as well. After we get through those reviews, we've got some news items to share about either some latest movie news. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'll go ahead and say, Richard Donner's passing, kind of a director I wanted to talk about a little bit in the news section, and a couple upcoming project interesting notes. And then we'll cap out the show with our recommendations of the episode. That's where Chris and I both give one film recommendation we think is worth checking out this week. So, Chris, got plenty to do. You ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get into our first review, which is the film Black Widow.
I tell people my sister moved out west. You're a science teacher. Your husband, he renovates houses. You're thinking about moving, but you're gonna wait until the interest rates go down.
That's not my story. Before I was an Avenger, I made mistakes. And a lot of enemies.
His call sign's Taskmaster. He controls the Red Room. They're manipulated, fully conscious, but no choices.
I should have come back for you.
How many others are there? Enough.
We have to go back to where it all started. So they never do that to anyone again.
We're a family. We fight with you.
You won't win.
I've always found it best not to look into the past.
Okay, you got a plan, or shall I just stay duck and cover?
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
At some point, we all have to choose between what the world wants you to be and who you are. I made my choice. I'm done running. Here's what's gonna happen.
Natasha, don't slouch.
I'm not slouching.
You're going to get a back hunch.
Listen to your mother.
Oh my God, this...
Up.
All
Listen.
right, enough. All of you.
I didn't say anything. That's not fair.
On July 9th, we will have the official cinematic kickoff of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to be followed by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings in September and The Eternals in November. Director Kate Shortland's Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz, has been delayed 3 times from an original May 2020 release due to the COVID pandemic. Alan, what'd you make of this kickoff for the next stage of the MCU? And do you think it will satiate audiences hungry for some big screen comic book content?
Your second question first.
Okay.
I think it will satiate the masses. Okay. This is a entertaining movie.
Okay. I hear a but coming.
No, it's entertaining.
Okay.
And it is fun. And I think people who are already bought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe will find plenty to enjoy and like out of this. In this film, we have, Natasha Romanoff, who obviously Scarlett Johansson. She is Black Widow. And, the one thing about the Black Widow character in all the other movies that she's been a part of in the Marvel Universe is we don't really get a lot of backstory. I mean, we kind of get hints at it. We kind of get little notes on she was trained to be an assassin, and maybe there was a group. I think the Red Room had been mentioned in previous movies as kind of a training group for these widows, they call them. But you didn't really get a lot more about any family, about any upbringing or any of that. So you do get that here in this movie.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I think the first 20, 30 minutes, probably the most effective part of this film and the most enjoyable for me, because it was the true backstory. And especially, I'm going to go ahead and say the first opening sequence, I think before you even get to the big credits, I thought were really, really effective. It's very, I think it took place back in the 80s, and it's, Natasha as a preteen or maybe a young teenager. And you just start to learn the dynamics of the situation she's living in with her family, and kind of a very thrilling escape they have to make. It was really good. So that really got me excited for the rest of the film. The rest of the film held up for the most part. It's a problem for me, Chris, is I think this is a film that it's a fairly inconsequential film, which I think is a little bit of a problem with it. If anybody's a fan of these movies, you know that the Black Widow character has something happen to her in a previous movie that makes this movie, again, somewhat inconsequential.
He's referencing Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so it does make it tough to watch it and kind of, where it's going to end. You know what this character's fate is. So yes, it's great to get the backstory, but at the end of the day, I hate saying it, it's kind of a disposable movie. I mean, it doesn't really change anything, doesn't really move any story forward. It doesn't move any character development forward in my mind. It was just nice popcorn entertainment for 2 hours. That being said, I did like it. And I think it was good. And I got some specific things I'll point out again that I thought were really good. But Chris, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I may have liked it a little more than you.
Okay.
But I think we're basically on the same page. The cast, Scarlett Johansson, she's good, obviously. She's been in other movies. I feel like she could have just walked through this because, she knows the character. She's been doing the character for a while now. But I feel like she actually did, show up and put some effort into it. I really like the relationship between her and Florence Pugh. I thought that was really good. And Florence Pugh, I really enjoyed seeing her do something that I've not really seen her do before, being an action movie. And so that was fun. And of course, David Harbour, I liked him.
I thought he was great. I thought he was probably my favorite character in the movie. Just because he gave it, it was interesting. He kind of played two sides of the coin because he had to play, in a way, two different characters.
Sure.
You meet him early in the film
Much younger.
See him as one type of character, a role he has to play.
Right.
And then you get to see him kind of unbridled, in all of his glory later on. And it was a fun part. So I agree with you. I thought David Harbour was great. But go ahead.
So, and Rachel Weisz, being kind of in an action movie, not used to seeing her, since the Mummy days. She was in the Mummy a long time ago, but not really seeing her in something like this. So it was fun. And I thought they all did a really great job. And now kind of what you're referencing, even though, to me, I am not as bought in to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sure.
So I didn't really care about Black Widow before. I still don't really care about her now, but I thought the movie was entertaining and, making me curious about, this took place between 2016 Civil War and between the first Avengers. So you kind of get us this is like a backstory thing. And instead of waiting, 15 years and and kind of milking, the franchise or whatever and going back and doing it. Yeah, they did wait. But it made it kind of interesting. So, because it's kind of like, just kind of a glimpse in the backstory. But instead of doing the whole movie as like her childhood or something, they kind of, I thought the framework
basically,
was
once you got past the first 15, 20 minutes and you get the understanding of her backstory and some of her family situation, then it just becomes a episode, an adventure of the Black Widow and her family. And it's still fun. It's a good, entertaining mix. Again, at the end of the day, it just doesn't really mean anything, but it's still fun. So,
And I'll say this too, without giving anything away about a post-credit scene, of which there is one. To me, I know, Marvel, also Star Wars, also, lots of franchises. They're very careful about franchise care and how they lead one thing into the other. Marvel did their whole, Avengers thing, and or the Endgame and the whole Thanos saga. It was very well planned out.
Yeah.
We mentioned as kind of the tease, this is the kickoff for Phase 4. Well, did it? Well, if you think of how some of the post-credits and how that could lead to something, this is a pretty safe and genius way for them to say, okay, now we're starting a new chapter. Here's some details. But they bring with somebody that's very familiar. You know what I mean? Like to start off the Phase 4 with Black Widow, people already know that's a safe thing, as opposed to starting it off with, like, for instance, the Eternals.
No, I agree.
I'm like, that's kind of genius. So
well, and again, we won't touch on any spoiler things, but I did read afterwards that the post-credit scene on this film had to be retooled a bit because this film was originally supposed to come out before any of the TV shows.
Interesting. Okay, I wondered.
And there is a tie-in with this post-credit scene and a scene from one of the TV shows, and it was supposed to be in a different order, so they had to retool those a little bit.
Interesting. Okay.
I'll say so. A couple call-outs. I do agree with you. I think Scarlett Johansson was really good. Okay. I mean, she was very effective in a film that I think they had a real interest in broadening the cast of characters beyond just her, and they did. Obviously, Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, the kind of her setting up, I think it's pretty clear in the trailers and all that, setting her up as another potential character in the universe.
You're saying we will probably see her again?
I think we'll see her again. Okay. And I think she held her own as well. I really like David Harbour. I like Rachel Weisz too. All four of the main leads I really thought were great.
Sure.
Where the film lost some points with me, Chris, I love comic booky movies. I like comic book tropes. I don't mind that stuff. But I feel like once a film has kind of got a tone and got a direction, it should kind of stay in that lane. Because if it starts to dip too much, if it's saying, okay, we're going to be more of a Jason Bourne espionage kind of thriller, which I think for the first half of this movie, it totally is.
Yes. Yeah.
Then when they start to introduce some very over-the-top comic booky elements, I'm thinking specifically about the things surrounding the main bad guy in this film. We did have Ray Winstone, who plays the big bad in the movie.
Yes.
I'll just say this. Supposedly he has a way where if his widows smell him, they can't attack him or something. Pheromone things. And it's almost just too outlandish.
You're saying you didn't buy that because it was a comic book, not necessarily because that was played for laughs.
No.
Okay, no, I didn't think it was played for laughs. But
I didn't think it was played for. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was just kind of ridiculous the way it was staged and the way it was played in kind of their confrontations. It was like
awkward. Yeah.
Okay. This is now kind of to a point where you had me in such a more realism grounded type of environment, and now you've kind of thrown this whole mix and this red powdered dust that they can just like poof, and then everybody like switches back. It just got a little dumb late in the film for me.
Okay.
But that aside, I still had a good time. It's just the inconsequentialness of the film kind of just hung with me the whole time.
Okay.
And made me enjoy it, but not really feel like I got anything more out of it than just some great popcorn entertainment for a couple hours. And that's fine.
Sure.
That's all we need sometimes. And I think this film delivered on that. I thought there were some great sequences early on. The kind of the standoff she has with
Taskmaster?
Yelena early on when they first meet back up, and then there's a following car chase, which I thought was pretty good. Yep. Don't see really good car chases in these comic book movies, and I think this was good. And I like the Taskmaster, the kind of the fighting villain thing. Again, we won't go into any spoilers on details of his backstory, but the design, the way he moved, I thought was really cool. So I did like that as well. It was a visually interesting a villain to work with.
Yeah, this is where I benefit, I think, sometimes from not knowing, because you probably know a little bit of the backstory. You do, and I don't. And so I thought the Taskmaster character was really awesome, and I enjoyed kind of the reveals with that character. I will say, which I think is a lot of times for me, just personal preference, kind of what you're saying about how you have a Jason Bourne type movie and then you shift and have like a different, then you have like a Marvel comic book movie. And to me, those are kind of separate things. And for instance, when I like a comic book movie, I like for the bad guys to be something more comic booky to me, like Taskmaster. So I like that. Dreykov to me was just kind of boring.
Yeah.
And so that was a problem with me, not necessarily what they said about like how he functioned, because I understood he was like the Red Room coordinator, but he's just a dude. So that to me makes him a heck of a lot less interesting.
Well, he was less interesting. I thought if you really think about his grand plan and kind of what his whole thing is, it's kind of dumb. And there again, I can't get past the whole pheromones thing. It was just the whole bit with Ray Winstone. I mean, I think Ray Winstone was fine in the role, but the whole storyline around his character, it wasn't great. I think, and Taskmaster is more the henchman villain, which, played that role. It's not going to be
really cool one.
But a really cool one.
Yeah.
Very much a Darth Maul type of character to drop in, where not the big bad, but it's the one that, is the most visually striking and interesting to watch and fun to play with. So, yeah. No, I think the film was good. Again, it was good. It just a couple of misgivings with the change in tone later in the film. And again, just wishing the film, when you've given us so many movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, each one tries to build on each other or at least moves characters forward. This is one where you can't really move the character forward. There's no real development you can have with a character when you know there's a fate waiting for them in a movie that's already happened. So anyway, that's my only feedback on it. But otherwise, that was good. Anything else you got on it?
Yeah, two things. I was a little surprised that this, PG-13, which, Marvel movies have been for a while. But I felt like the rating was like really strongly worn on its sleeve, like because there was some language that I was kind of surprised. And then there's a theme. Granted, it kind of feeds into the whole widow background, things like that. But basically, they talk about childhood indoctrination, assassination, which, they've mentioned that with like Black Panther, like, things that people get assassinated. But specifically, there's a conversation between Florence Pugh's character and Scarlett Johansson's and David Harbour. And they're basically talking about forced female sterilization. And it like is just, it's really thrown out there. And they and I was like, whoa. For this to be, Marvel, but Disney, I'm like, wow, that's
and there was also
heavy.
There's also a scene of, you're kind of flashing back a little bit to the one big kind of thing that Black Widow's really been traumatized that she did that involved a child, kind of as part of an assassination plot. And so, there were some heavier themes in there for the movie sure.
I guess you figure, but still, I was was like, wow, this is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And but I see that as a positive. I was kind of impressed that they took that on and didn't, I will say though, because, I like the movie, but, take a drink, because I did feel like the running time was extended.
There's the running time comment. I was waiting to see how that was coming.
At 134 minutes. And specifically, it kind of clipped along and was fine until a final action sequence that took a while to ramp up. And you could see where it was going to end up. And it suffered for me, which is kind of a tease for a discussion we'll have in a bit from the Fast and Furious level of suspension of disbelief. I get it. It's a comic book movie. It is trying for realism, but it's not like the Jason Bourne level of realism. But it got kind of silly. It involved like, a flying fortress and people falling. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah. By that point in the film, I kind of had just said, all right, we're going full comic booky here. And that's fine. Again, I wish the first half of the film, I thought the first half of the film was just so much more effective at setting the right tone. And I'm afraid the pheromones, the red powder stuff, the falling from the sky, fighting in midair. That's where they said, nope, let's remind everybody this is still a Marvel superhero movie, so let's have fun with it. And it's fine. The ending didn't bother me as much because I'd already kind of given in to the
Sure.
This is where we are now. That's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree with you though. I wish the tone had been more consistent, and I would have loved to have seen a just truly strict Jason Bourne type action thriller the whole way through. And I think they could have done it. I mean, I really do, and still been a fun film. But as it was, I'm still saying it's fun, it's entertaining. I think it was well done. Kate Shortland, not an action director, not a big budget movie director. So this is kind of her first time working on a big spectacle. I read an interview with her after seeing the film, and something she actually turned down doing this film, I think initially, and they had to kind of convince her, and finally she decided to do it and give it a shot. And I thought she did a good job with it.
Absolutely.
So, it worked. So, all right. Well, that is Black Widow. I think it comes out in theaters on July 9th.
Yes.
Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So by the time you hear this, I think it should be out in theaters. And Chris and I are both saying, yeah, it's good. I had a good time with it. It's fun. So we encourage you to check it out, especially if you are a Marvel fan. I think you'll find plenty here to still enjoy continuing that whole big story. All right, Chris, let's go ahead and move into our second review, which is the film is an adaptation of a book called When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit.
Das ist Anna aus Deutschland. Der Flüchtling. Sie geht jetzt mit uns in Klasse.
Herzlich willkommen, Anna.
So Angst manchmal, Papa, im Moment.
Ja, wovor denn?
Vor dem Anstecker. Macht es dir nichts aus, Flüchtling zu sein?
Doch, aber ich finde es auch ganz interessant.
Ihr Juden müsst doch überall die Besten sein, oder?
Letzten Dienstag sind Sie da mit einem LKW gekommen und haben eure Sachen abgeholt.
Kannst du dich an Professor Teitelbaum erinnern?
Da haben Sie ihn in einen Hundezwinger gesperrt.
Chris, when Hitler stole Pink Rabbit, we have the story of Anna, who's 9-year-old, and her life changes when her family has to escape the threat of Nazis coming in 1933. Her father, Arthur, is a well-known Jewish journalist, so therefore he has to flee because he's on the list of people that Hitler wants to have dealt with, unfortunately. So the whole family, Anna, her 12-year-old brother Max, their mother Dorothea, we follow them as they have to make several moves and several changes in their life to basically escape this threat, overwhelming threat that they have over them and their family to stay safe. As I mentioned, the setup, this is based on a book, based on a story. And I don't have a lot of background on the story or book itself, but I know that the book, I want to say, had a little more slant or tone towards children, and it kind of I don't want to say a children's book, but it was more from the viewpoint of the 9-year-old child. That was the whole idea of what this 9-year-old child was seeing around her as the family was having to be uprooted and moving to different countries along the way, kind of the peril that she saw her father in and her whole family along the way. So my question to you, Chris, is, having not read the book, I don't know if you've read the book.
No,
I assume.
I have not.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Did the film work for you at all? And it being from the perspective of a 9-year-old, if that's the way the book was kind of designed to be from, did the film work from that regard as well as telling a great story from a 9-year-old's perspective of such a traumatic time, or did it miss the mark in doing so?
Well, I think the way, I'm not familiar with the book, but the way the film told the story, I guess mainly from maybe the little girl's perspective, but it also didn't mind focusing on how the rest of the family also felt too. She has a brother and, of course, a mom and a dad. That was something for me when I go into World War II movies, of which we reviewed plenty here on the show. Oftentimes they kind of blend together. And whether it's just the story of one person and their struggle through World War II, or it's maybe one or two people in a prison camp or soldiers, it's like, so perspective-wise, this was something kind of new to me where it focused on a family and then them having to like constantly hopscotch to different places and not just, run and flee, but also have to worry about, okay, what are we going to do for money? What are we going to do for food? We don't speak the language. What are we going to do about that? Like, and the kids having to be like, and so that to me did make it kind of stand out, and it was successful. And I like this film more than I actually thought I would, because I thought I would just kind of pass it off as, it's okay, but I don't feel like it has brought anything new or informed any new perspectives on how I see that time period. And it did. So I was kind of surprised by that. So what do you think, Alan?
Well, I did not care for this movie.
Wow. Okay.
And it's tough for me to review it because, the subject matter and the story being told, obviously very, important. And I think, I think it's an important story to be heard and told. Mm-hmm. I just unfortunately felt like this movie was a big, big case of let's tell you what's happening and let's just talk through everything happening, but we don't really spend any time with any characters to really get a real sense of it. I just felt like the movie was more, let's talk about everything that's happening, and then we're going to have big dramatic emotional moments with characters that we really haven't developed or fleshed out a whole lot. So there's not a lot to base those emotional moments on. And I feel like the film, obviously, the nature of the story is very repetitive anyway. It's, we're in a city.
We're in trouble.
We get in trouble. So now let's go leave and go to another city. And it didn't really do anything for me.
Wow,
so, and again,
I
I hate that because, again, I think the story is important. I actually am kind of curious about the book because I think the book probably had more effort to, I would imagine, make you care about the characters, make you get to know the characters a little bit more. And I also wish the movie had stuck with, if it's going to be the perspective of a 9-year-old child, let's go from that perspective. This movie just said, well, we maybe start with the viewpoint of a 9-year-old child. The first few moments and scenes, it seemed like it was going to be all from her perspective. As the film went along, it was just, no, it's just going to be everybody. And we're just going to see everybody in the family and just follow them and all.
That for me was what made it better, because you look at another film like Jojo Rabbit, also has rabbit in the title. That's mainly from the perspective of the boy and how he perceives Hitler Youth and things like that. And where this, you have the girl's perspective, but you also have you also have the mother and the father and the brother. I don't know. It made it stand out for me. And I feel like, I was sympathetic. I think some of what you're referencing is you didn't feel the pull for like the housekeeper, Helgi.
Right.
Let's call her that. I think it's something close to that. But she gets left behind in Berlin with an idea that she was going to come later, but that didn't work out. And then there's an uncle that is also friends with the family that does some writing back and forth. But then at one point, he's no longer there. Yep. And something about, it worked for me how it was like, because I felt that part of the separation, which things you can't control, things you have plans that are going to work out and they don't work out. And then how that it crushes the family, but then they also try to keep mother and father, try to put on a brave face for the little child. And so I don't know. I feel it worked for me. I can see what you're saying, that they weren't developed enough for you, but for me, that kind of made I don't know.
You thought it kind of put you a little bit more in the family shoes, where their distance from the family, and then you have to hear kind of what happens to them or where they are or what's going on in their life. That distance is, you kind of equated to that.
I see your nature or your comment about how it was very repetitive. But for me, that worked because it was like something that I guess I'd never really thought about. I never thought about, we have the Anne Frank story, which they were trapped and they didn't get to go anywhere. They were trapped somewhere. And then you have the really sad and harrowing tales. You have of people that are captured, that are Jews, that are captured, and they're put in concentration camps. And that's kind of the end of the story there. I'm not really familiar with a story where a family, spoiler, they do succeed and they do get out and they are successful in like jumping. But despite that, they lose people along the way that they're very close to and they die. And the hardships of being treated poorly in different places.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why they have to keep jumping. I don't know.
Well,
It
I'm
worked
glad
for
it worked
me.
for you.
Yeah.
I was upset that it didn't work for me because again, I think it's an important story to follow. And again, I do like, I thought everybody acting wise was good. I don't think it was a, poorly acted film or a badly cast film. I will say I thought the mother, played by Carla Juri, was really good. She was probably my favorite character in the film as far as acting perspective. She was in the film Wetlands, which I don't know if you ever saw from several years
I've
back.
heard of it,
but yeah, Dorothea Kemper, she played. I thought she was really good. I mean, the rest of the family was good too. And then you got Reva Kremolowski as Anna, the young girl. Everybody was great. I mean, the direction was fine. Again, it was just more of the storytelling aspects of it, translating this perspective of the young child into a 2-hour movie where the actual story itself is repetitive. And I mean, I hate to say the word boring because that gives off such a negative connotation, but it's just people sitting and talking about what just happened. And now, now we got to move and we're going to move to this other city. And now we kind of go through the same motions again. And it didn't go anywhere for me. But again, I know when you're basing it off of an actual true story somebody wrote about their childhood,
Right.
that's the way it was. And that's the story they had. And that's fine. I hate criticizing it on that regard. It was a well-made movie, well acted. It just did not hit the storytelling for me that I felt like it needed to tell an effective story. So.
Well, I think one of the things that helped me too, you mentioned the acting of the central family, and I thought they were all really, 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 really good. Okay.
All right.
And so that helped kind of bring alive the story. Was I felt like the tight knit family worked really well together. The cinematography in the film I thought was beautiful. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of a lot of scenes of another World War II movie that I don't know if we reviewed, but it was from like 2 years ago, same year that Jojo Rabbit came out. But Terrence Malick's The Hidden World.
Yes.
And that reminded me a lot of that movie. And that's an example of a movie. Very good film, well shot, well acted, but it follows more of the father and his plight, and then he has to leave his family because he's taken away from them. And so that's what made this one kind of stand out in my mind more, is because fortunately, the family was able to stay together, but following them as a unit.
But there were a lot of moments where there was some separation,
sure,
and you stuck with the kids, which I thought was a nice concept for it.
There's two other scenes that I'd like to kind of point out as high points in the film for me. There's a scene where the mother makes friends with somebody else. I can't remember which city they're in at this point. They're totally out of Berlin. I don't know if they're in.
I think they're in Paris.
They may be in Paris. But
the piano scene.
Yes, the piano scene.
Mm-hmm. That's Paris. Yeah.
Okay, that's Paris. And that scene was just it was an unexpected moment of joy for these two people, just cutting loose and playing on the piano. And to me, I can't think of a movie that communicates that much joy through music that's not a movie about music.
Yeah.
Like, they hint that that's what she does for a living, and she hasn't been able to play a piano for a while now. She had to leave that job where she was basically she was a musician that wrote music and everything, composer. And she gets this chance, and it's such this huge bonding moment, and these ladies just tear into a piano, and it was really, really cool.
No, it was good. And I liked even the kind of leading up to that. Like, she enters this woman's house as they're settling in. She sees the piano off in the side, kind of a little cut view shot where you can just see that she sees the piano. And I mean, earlier in the film, she was bothered by the fact that the Nazis came in and basically took all their stuff out of their previous home in Berlin. And she was really worried about the piano and finding out the piano was gone as well. So, yeah. No, it was a nice scene. I agree with that. Well,
and so the other scene that I'll point out was the father and daughter are having this conversation. And, she's just kind of, of course, they're Jewish. And I think it's after they've attended a service, possibly. And she asked her dad, hey, do you believe in God? And he said, I'm afraid not. I only believe in gratefulness. People who don't feel grateful always lose. And I thought that was a very interesting, it was it was a really interesting thought and quote. And so and that was towards kind of the latter part of the film.
Sure.
So I obviously liked this film a good bit, and I liked it a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. I wish it connected for me the same way, but it did not. But again, I think there's a lot here to admire. Just again, overall, the story just did not work in a movie format with the choices I feel like they made on how to tell the story and the elements behind it. So, but that is When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. I have had people ask me, what does the title mean? So, again, kind of alluding back to the fact that they had to up and leave and left so many of their possessions back in Berlin when they found out their father was being targeted because he was a head journalist and he had written some things very critical of Germany at the time. And so obviously he's a Jewish also. So they felt like they left. And the young girl had to basically pick one toy to take with her and had to leave plenty behind. And so the kind of comment she makes is that the pink rabbit, she feels like Hitler stole it because she had to leave the pink rabbit. Hitler got all the stuff in their house and was using it and playing with it or doing something with it. So anyway, just to clarify that name. So, because it's kind of a unique title to a film.
Is.
So,
yeah. And unfortunately makes probably not only my mind, but everybody thinks of Jojo Rabbit. Because I was talking to some people and they're like, oh, I've seen that. And I'm like, nah, but you've seen Jojo Rabbit.
You have, yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, that is When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. It is available. I mean, we host it right now on our Footcandle Film Society site, our virtual cinema. You can go to footcandle.org and actually see the film there, buy a ticket and watch it from the comfort of your own home. Beyond that, I don't know when it will be available for rental or anything else outside of the virtual cinemas. But right now, footcandle.org is probably your best bet to go find it and see it. Just follow the link to the virtual cinema. And if you're a member, you get to watch it for free. If you're a guest, just pay the ticket price and you get to watch it. So, all right, Chris, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some news items. We're going to talk about the latest big winner in the box office. We're going to talk about Richard Donner, director who just recently passed away. And then we'll have some recommendations as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. Just a quick reminder, Chris, we have a film festival coming up soon.
Yes.
September 22nd through the 26th of the year 2021. It will be held both here in person in Western North Carolina, our hometown of Hickory. Here in the downtown environment of Hickory, North Carolina, we will be hosting the festival, but it will also have online components to the films as well. So people throughout the state of North Carolina can actually be able to watch the films online throughout the festival weekend and for a few days afterwards as well. So, Chris, what's the website for the festival and when are tickets going on sale and all that?
So, website for the festival is footcandlefilmfestival.com. And then tickets will go on sale. Let's see. They will probably go on sale late in July, possibly as early as July 19th. But it'll definitely be by late July. They'll be going on sale.
All right. So that is the Footcandle Film Festival. We're excited. Should be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to having some people come and travel and visit with us here in North Carolina for that long weekend. And again, if you're not able to make it here yourself and you live in the state of North Carolina, you will be able to watch these films online. So we hope you'll take part in that as well. All right, Chris, let's jump into some news items. Let's start off. I mean, we don't normally do like box office, talk about like what won the box office this past weekend, but we're I think it's interesting to at least look at it because we are getting back to theaters, getting back into more full speed showing big films. And this past weekend, you had F9, the latest in the Fast and the Furious franchise, as the big box office winner again, as it has been for the past week or so. Chris, I've only seen maybe half of the first Fast and the Furious movie. Maybe I watched the whole thing. I don't really recall. I just know that that's the only movie I danced around with. I have not seen 2 through now 9.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand you did partake in the Fast and the Furious fever this past weekend.
Yeah. A long time ago, I think it was maybe at the start of the pandemic. No, I think it must have been before that, because Hobbs and Shaw, which is the prior entry in between Fast 8, Furious 8, or whatever it was, F8 and this F9, I was like, I've seen the first movie. I'm going to marathon them all, and then I'll be on target for Hobbs and Shaw, which Hobbs and Shaw, very disposable, didn't really care for it. But I never made it. I think I made it all the way to the 4th film, and then I never saw the 5th film. But I did get to see this 9th film. If you are a fan of this franchise, then I think you'll enjoy the film, because from what I know from the films that I have seen, it kind of follows the formula. Doesn't worry too much about a followable plot. Doesn't really worry about that. Has plenty of like fast cars. People.
Oh, so there are cars in this one.
There are cars.
Okay, good to know.
It has plenty of fast cars and action sequences and like Schwarzenegger-esque kind of one-liners spewed by Vin Diesel. Yeah, all that's there. There's a big focus in these movies on family. Yes, that is there as well. There's a kind of an odd cameo, which I'm not sure if she's been in the films before because I have not seen all of them, by Helen Mirren, but it was fun to see her in this like crazy action movie. The storyline, like I mentioned, it's pedestrian, formulaic. I don't envy the filmmakers for always having to top themselves stunt-wise, because I understand that is a thing. Like every movie, they keep trying to say like, okay, what can we do? What can we do?
You got to kind of top it, the last one.
Without giving anything away, there is cars in space. So that was kind of something that was happening in this movie that said, there you go. But early in the film, I think it may be the first action sequence, there's a point where characters knowingly drive across a minefield. They do not know where the mines are, but they are thinking that they are going to try to outrun the explosions, maybe. This is complicated by the fact that our heroes are not only in one vehicle, because maybe you could say they'll be the first to cross and they go so fast they trip the mines, the people behind them blow up. No, the heroes are in a couple of different vehicles. So it's like, okay, so technically, person driving first car could be the cause of person driving second car, who are some of their friends, death. So it kind of doesn't really, but if that bothers you, you're probably not a fan of the franchise, and you probably don't need to go see this movie. Yeah. But we've talked before about a movie you go see and you just turn your brain off, and you just enjoy the ridiculous stunts, or whatever. This is for you. I found it to be a little too much. Some of the other films, especially by the time it gets to like the first film, they didn't have a big budget. These were all no names at the time. They're just having fun and enjoying kind of the ridiculousness. I think over time, as they've gone like 6, 7, 8, they have kind of returned to that formula about not really caring. And they get people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to be in the films. And they keep, Jason Statham, they keep adding these names. And it somehow kind of works. I think this will probably work for most fans of the franchise, but it just, to me, it's just kind of disposable. But there again, you can't take it too seriously, because in this one film, you have a character who has the name of Cypher, and then another character whose name is Mr. Nobody. So it's like, okay, this is what we're working with here, people. So, don't expect too much, and know that the VIP team member is going to be magnets in this film. Magnets play a big role.
So magnets are big in the movie.
Yes, high-powered magnets. So, okay,
And this movie was officially called F9: The Fast Saga,
which I don't get, because it has already been stated there's going to be a 10th movie, and I guess technically the 11th movie, but it's like a 10th movie split up into 2 parts. And those will be the last, in theory, those will be the last franchise movie. So I don't understand why you call one movie the Fast Saga. Yeah. I don't get it. But
it was 2 hours and 23 minutes. How'd you do with the time duration there, Chris? I know that's a big hang up for you.
I mean, there again, because it was fun. It did kind of lag, but you kind of get that, because you're like, okay, I know next action set piece is coming up. And I admit too, because I haven't seen all the movies, you can tell there are setups for jokes that do lots and lots of callbacks. And I didn't get a lot of them because I haven't seen the movies.
So you probably would benefit more having seen all the other movies.
Probably.
And have a little better enjoyment.
And I have to say, because this is such a, hallmark franchise, it's very, 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 very successful. It premiered overseas before it even opened here and was doing really, really well. Yeah. I am curious, what are they going to do to make two movies? Like, what's going to be the end piece? So
if they do their 10th one next, could they call it FX? Like F and then number 10? I don't know.
Well, there's also talk of fast 10 your seatbelts. So there's all this. Oh, wow. That's a pretty big shrug from Al. So who knows? Who knows? But if you're a fan of the franchise, definitely
10.
go out and see it.
Okay. Got it. All right. Well, maybe one day I'll get around to when I have an entire free weekend with absolutely nothing to do. I'll just watch all of them and just get caught up to speed on the Fast
saga.
Saga.
Thing is, quarantine, I did make it a little bit more, and I thought that was going to be my time to really do it, but I still didn't make it through.
No. None of us really did all the things in quarantine we said we were going to do. So
this is true.
All right. So great. Well, thanks for taking one for the team there, Chris, and going to see F9 for us. Sure. Let's move on to another news item. Sadly, news of Richard Donner, director and producer, passed away at age 91. And it always happens when a famous director, someone especially that turned out so many big movies that we're all familiar with, passes away. We always kind of retroactively look back and kind of see everything else that they have done and kind of see the filmographies and recall some of our favorites. This list is impressive. So let me just hit this list really quick, Chris. This is not even all the films. This is just the ones that are more highlights. So his first film was 1968. It was a film called Salt and Pepper that had Sammy Davis Jr. in it. Not familiar with it, but that was his first movie.
So not the pop star.
No, did not have the R&B duo from the 80s and 90s. No, this was Sammy Davis Jr. Salt and Pepper.
Okay.
That kind of got him into feature films, but then you kind of just start looking at the big hits. I mean, The Omen, big, huge horror movie when it came out. Superman, the original Superman, the motion picture, and then Superman 2, which I'm going to put a little asterisk on that because we're going to talk about that in my recommendations. So hold tight on that. The Goonies, Lethal Weapon, Scrooged, one of my favorite Christmas movies with Bill Murray. Radio Flyer, Maverick, which, I had a lot of fun with. I think is a great James Garner, Jodie Foster, and Mel Gibson movie.
I have never seen that, but I've always been curious.
It's a good, fun movie, yeah. Something of note is, he and his wife, I think, were producers on when those original X-Men films, the Bryan Singer X-Men films came out.
Interesting.
The Singers were producers. So they kind of were helping that usher in that new genre of superhero movies that has obviously done pretty well since now.
Yeah.
The last film he did, unfortunately, it's not a film I've seen, but it was 16 Blocks. I think it had Bruce Willis and don't remember who he was co-starring with. But what I thought was interesting looking back, I mean, obviously these are some great films. I mean, I still think the original Superman and Superman 2, the version I'm going to talk about in my recommendations, really, really great movies that really kind of set the tone of what superhero movies could do and look like. The Goonies is just super classic and so much fun. And then I mentioned Scrooge as being one of my favorite Christmas movies. You have a particular Richard Donner film that stands out, either of that list or other ones I'm forgetting here?
I have seen all of his films. I was not aware because back when I watched it, I didn't pay attention to direction. I wasn't aware he did The Omen. That's crazy. So he has quite the wide-ranging filmography. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you something that will probably I'm going to be surprised if you know this.
Okay.
So he actually did a lot of work in TV before he got into the motion picture. So back in the 60s, he filmed a lot of TV episodes. Richard Donner did several episodes of The Twilight Zone. Most notably, he did Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, the one with Richard Shatner. That was Richard Donner directing that episode.
Okay.
That's kind of probably the most famous Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
The creature out on the wing of a plane and William Shatner kind of going slowly crazy in the cabin. So that was him. I thought that was kind of fun. So William Shatner had a little tribute to make upon Richard Donner's passing with that.
Wow.
So, overall, great director, made a huge impact on cinema, blockbuster, big motion picture cinema for us. And over a long time, too. I mean, starting in the late 60s, and I think his last film was only in the last 10 years. So, quite a long career there. So, our condolences to the Donner family, and rest in peace, Richard Donner. So, all right, Chris, I think you have another news item to share with us as well. I have no idea what it is.
Okay, so we're going to play a little game.
Okay.
And it's going to be called Pick the Fake. Okay?
Pick the what?
Pick the fake. This is something that is not true.
So
I'm going to read you some descriptions of movies that are being worked on, and I want you to tell me which one is not true.
Which one is not true?
Which means all the rest are.
All the other ones are going to be true films in production.
Correct.
One of them will not be. And I've got to pick out the one that's not.
Correct. They're going to be 5.
I got it. 5. Got it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Lena Dunham, director, she is making a Polly Pocket film. Okay. Do you know Polly Pocket, which is a toy for girls? Well, young girls. Okay.
Okay.
And it's starring Lily James. Okay. So this is a project.
Okay. Got it. That's one.
Then we have a Barney the Dinosaur film with being produced by Daniel Kaluuya. Okay. Then we have Rock'em Sock'em Robots starring Vin Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Then so that's 3. Then we have a Barbie film starring Margot Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a Mr. Potato film starring Jim Carrey. So which of these films is not happening? And conversely, that means all the other 4 are happening.
Process of elimination here.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain the Lena Dunham film is correct.
Okay.
And I know for a fact the Barbie film is correct.
Yeah, I think
those
we
two,
mentioned that at some point.
Those 2 are new.
Okay.
I'm going to say that the Vin Diesel film Rock'em Sock'em Robots is real.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, oh boy, it's between these 2. One of these 2 is the fake one.
Okay.
I'm going to say the Mr. Potato Head Jim Carrey one is real, which would leave the Barney Daniel Kaluuya film as being fake.
Yeah, this is kind of a hard game, but I thought it was a fun way to do this.
Yeah.
So you're pretty close. The Barney film is supposedly happening.
Okay.
So it's the Mr.
It's
Potato
the
film with
Mr.
Jim
Potato
Carrey.
Head Jim
I
Carrey.
totally made that one up, but maybe it'll happen someday. But
well, I got it down to 2. I was pretty happy with that.
That's good.
Really, so Daniel Kaluuya with a Barney film
wants to produce
a
Barney film. So, but stranger to me, like Vin Diesel doing a Rock'em Sock'em Robots film.
No, I totally get that.
I mean, I guess I do, but it's
that.
So it's really random. They've made movies out of toys before, obviously, but I guess I feel like they're really stretching.
They're stretching. Well, I mean,
because Polly Pocket to me, but I think Lena Dunham's thing was, well, I want to make an intelligent movie for young girls that comes off a toy that's supposed to be inspiring or something. Kind of what I think they're going to do with Barbie, how they're kind of flipping that.
I can see that.
So I guess I get that, but yeah, a Barney movie, I don't get that at all. But
no, I really don't. I guess also because Barney was a live action TV show. So, I mean, I guess you make a feature length movie out of it. Yeah. I mean, again, I say that and it'll probably make $1 billion. And,
maybe.
Huge. Who knows? I have no idea anymore. Okay. Well, that was fun. So, all 4 of those actual projects in production
are in some stage of production.
But Jim Carrey, if you're listening to the show, and I think you do because I've seen some comments.
I'm sure.
Mr. Potato Head, if you end up making this film, you got to credit Chris Fry for giving you the inspiration.
The idea to do it.
Okay, there you go. All right, great. Well, that's going to wrap up our news. So again, we talked about F9. Chris gave his little mini review of that film. Richard Donner's passing away and his storied career. And now a lot of movies being made out of a lot of toys and children's characters that are surprising. Let's move on to our final segment, which is our recommendations. Chris and I both provide a recommendation for you, something we think is worth checking out, something you can find online. You can actually watch in the comfort of your own home. So, Chris, what do you have to share for us on a recommendation today?
So I'm going to recommend a film called Plan B. It is streaming on Hulu. That's the only place it is right now. It is a 2021 film. It's directed by Natalie Morales, who's an actress who also has made a couple of films. And this one is kind of a semi take on something like Superbad or Booksmart. But I cared for this one a lot more. I think because there wasn't a lot of hype around this film. I just kind of stumbled across it. It's two friends played by Victoria Morales and Kahu Verma. And they're, high school friends. And the reason it's called Plan B is one has a regrettable first sexual encounter, and she's a straight-laced high school student. She has a slacker best friend, and they go on a 24-hour hunt to get a Plan B pill. And where they are in America's heartland, that is a bit of a struggle. There are judgments made. And the one girl, her name is Sunny, and she is from a very traditional Indian family. And so her mother is very, very strict.
Sure.
And so it provides this. And then the girl, her friend, her name is Lupe. She comes from a very conservative Christian family. Her father's a pastor.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of dynamics at work. But I felt I really bought into their friendship. And I thought the film was pretty funny. But it never took like pot shots, I thought. And I really thought it was good and made a lot of important points about friendship and family. There's a thing towards the end of the film, or a point at the end of the film, we're not giving too much away, but the father talks to Lupe and he says, "It's not my job to judge you. It's my job to be your dad, no matter what." And that was pretty powerful. So I really liked it. It is dealing obviously with adult subject matter. It is an strong R comedy.
Sure.
But I really liked it, and it was a complete surprise because I'd seen a little talk on Twitter about it, so it was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I'd heard a little bit about it, but I'm glad you had a chance to check it out and see that. So that's great. So Plan 9.
Plan B. Different type of
different kind of plan. Yes. Sorry, I went on autopilot there. Plan B on Hulu. There you go. Great. So I'm going to kind of call back to my news item for my recommendation. I talked about Richard Donner and some of the films of his I really, really liked. And I did mention Superman 2. Now, here's the interesting thing about that film, for those of you not aware of the story, is that Richard Donner did the first Superman movie, Superman the Motion Picture. Big hit. People loved it. It was great. Christopher Reeve introduced him to a big worldwide audience and kind of set a new standard for movies that could be based off of comic books and superheroes. So obviously they wanted to move forward with making a Superman 2. Richard Donner was signed on to direct Superman 2 as well. However, during production, there were some issues. I think Richard Donner having some issues with the producers of the film or vice versa. Budgets going high, other things. The producers were kind of notably known for trying to keep costs low. And I think they had some skirmishes with Donner about budget and choices of the story. So Richard Donner filmed a lot of the film that you see today in the theatrical version of Superman 2. But a lot of his footage actually got cut, and they brought in another director, Richard. I should have written it down, and I'm going to hate myself for not remembering, but another Richard came in, a Richard who had he's the one who actually directed A Hard Day's Life for the Beatles.
Oh, okay.
Richard.
Yeah, I should know his name now,
I know. I'm sorry, I'll get it.
Hard Day's Night.
Anyway, they brought him in to basically reshoot a lot of the film and to put the final touches on it. So his name is Richard Lester. Sorry, got it. Richard Lester is credited as the director of Superman 2.
Gotcha.
However, if you watch the movie really carefully, if you're familiar with the first one, you watch the second one, you can almost tell half the scenes are shot and you can almost tell that looks like Richard Donner because it's very similar to the look and feel of the first movie. And then there's others that, honestly, it's the scenes that are a lot more slapsticky and silly, are very different looking. And that's Richard Lester's touch on the film.
Okay.
So my overall, what I'm getting to with this whole big long story is that just not too long ago, I think about maybe 10, 15 years ago, they did release Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, where they had taken all the original Richard Donner footage and reconstructed the movie to be his film.
Okay.
And my understanding is I think they were able to do it just about with all of his footage. They may have had to slice in a couple scenes or shots that he didn't do. But I mean, the vast majority of the film was his film now. And it changes a lot of the film. It actually, it makes the film, okay, Superman 2, I love, but there are some moments in it that are just groan-worthy, silly, kind of ridiculous. A lot of slapstick humor, even with Lois Lane, very slapsticky, kind of her frantic energy and always kind of getting into trouble or just a lot of energy there that just seemed really out of place with her.
Okay.
The Richard Donner cut makes her a much smarter character with a lot more agency throughout the film. I don't know if you remember from Superman 2. I don't even need to go into the plot for it. It's 3 Kryptonian villains.
I would say that probably is my favorite film, if I can count it as a Donner film since he didn't get to be director.
Yeah, and you still can, because I think overall the core of the film is still basically the same. The 3 Kryptonian villains, all with the same power as Superman, come to Earth, and Superman has to fight them. He loses his powers, has to get them back, so forth. There's a scene in the theatrical version where they're fighting in the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman takes his S symbol logo off his chest and throws it, and it turns into like a giant cellophane wrapper over the thing. It's just, that's not a power. That's not anything he should be able to do. I don't see how that's possible.
Sure.
Well, it's gone. That was a Richard Lester touch.
Okay.
A lot of the silly stuff, like even when the battle's going on in the middle of New York City, Times Square with the big villains, there would be cutaway shots in the theatrical versions of like civilians like doing pratfalls and like having silly stuff with like umbrellas or whatever, or getting blown away. That was not Richard Donner. So when you watch the Richard Donner cut, I think it's a lot more emotional film. I think it's a lot more strong, powerful film. It's much more serious film, and it just works. The one thing that's unfortunate about the Richard Donner cut, if you recall at the end of Superman 2 in the theatrical version, Lois Lane has learned that Clark Kent is Superman. The way she forgets it is he gives her a magical kiss, and she now forgets. Again, doesn't make any sense. In the Richard Donner version, they have the same issue where Lois has figured out Clark's identity.
Got you.
And the way he makes her forget, also kind of groan-inducing, but at least it's a little better than a magical kiss. He does the same thing he did in the first Superman movie, which is he makes the Earth spin backwards in time to the point where all the events of this movie never take place. I hate that they reuse the same Deus Ex Machina to just make that happen, but it's better than just him kissing her and her forgetting, and that still doesn't make any sense. Anyway, all I'm trying to say is the film, I think, is better.
Okay.
I think it's more serious. I think it's more emotional. I think things make more sense in the film, like certain reasons, like why he gives up his powers, why he has to do that. It just didn't make any sense with the theatrical version. So, in honor of Richard Donner, I do recommend maybe go out and check out the Donner cut of Superman 2 if you haven't seen it. It is available on Amazon, Apple TV. You can buy it. I don't know if you can rent it. I didn't see it for rent anywhere. I think it may be a purchase thing.
Okay.
But it is available, and you can kind of compare the differences between the two versions. And I think it's a better version.
I would like to see the director's cut. I don't believe I have, so I'll have to look into that.
Okay. Well, I've got a DVD copy of it, so I'll be
nice.
happy to let you check that out. So. All right, so that is our recommendations. Chris with Plan B on Hulu, me with Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut on Amazon, Apple TV, anywhere where you can buy digital movies, you should be able to find it. All right, Chris, I think that's our show for today. So Black Widow, When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. You were positive on both those films, which is pretty nice to see. You actually were a little more positive on both of them than I was.
I think so.
But Black Widow, I'm still saying I enjoyed quite a bit and it's worth a watch. When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, I had some issues with and troubles, but Chris is a much stronger advocate for it and says it's worth your time to check out. And then our news items, F9, Richard Donner, and a lot of toy movies and cartoon movies being made.
Yes.
All right. So, Chris, let's go ahead and wrap up. If somebody wanted to contact us, talk about anything we're talking about, or ask us questions, how can they do that?
You can send us an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter @footcandlefilm. Alan and I are also on Letterboxd, where you can track what we're seeing. Sometimes we give short reviews. And as Alan has mentioned, we are having our 2021 Foot Candle Film Festival, September 22nd to the 26th. We'll be announcing when you can buy tickets and stuff in late July. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, we appreciate it. Consider giving us a star rating, write a review, share with friends, and iTunes to help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. We're also on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, and Pocket Cast.
Okay. Lots of ways to contact and connect with us, so we hope you do. And that's our show for today. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We will be back in the next couple of weeks with another episode, some more reviews, more movie news. Until then, take care. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.